The day Mama died, the fireflies disappeared from Jackson Creek. I'd spent my whole life watching them dance across our front porch on warm summer evenings, their gentle glow a constant reminder of the magic that lived in our little southern town. But as I stood there, I realized the darkness had finally won. I hadn't been back to Jackson Creek in 5 years, not since I'd left for art school in New York with stars in my eyes and paint on my fingers. Mama had been so proud, her weathered hands smoothing down my unruly curls as she'd whispered, "You go show 'em what a Southern girl can do." Now, as I stepped off the bus, the heavy Tennessee air wrapped around me like a thick blanket, threatening to suffocate me with memories. The main street looked just as I remembered, all faded storefronts and chipped paint, time standing still in the worst possible way. The old oak tree in the town square still stood tall, its branches reaching out like welcoming arms, but even it seemed diminished somehow, as if it too mourned the loss of Jackson Creek's vibrant spirit. "Well, hello, pretty girl." A familiar drawl cut through my thoughts. I turned to see Noah James leaning against an old pickup truck, looking like he'd stepped right out of my teenage dreams. His sandy hair was a little longer, his shoulders a bit broader, but those hazel eyes still crinkled at the corners when he smiled. He wore a faded flannel shirt rolled up to his elbows, revealing strong forearms dusted with freckles I used to count during lazy summer afternoons. "Noah," I managed, willing my voice not to betray the storm of emotions swirling inside me. "It's good to see you." He pushed off the truck and strode towards me, enveloping me in a hug that smelled of pine and motor oil. "I'm real sorry about your mama, Mia," he murmured into my hair. "She was one of the good ones." I nodded against his chest, not trusting myself to speak. When he pulled back, I saw a flicker of something in his eyes. Concern, maybe, or a hint of the connection we'd shared all those years ago. "Come on," he said, grabbing my suitcase. "I'll give you a ride to your mama's place." As we drove through town, I couldn't help but notice how much had changed. The old diner where we used to share milkshakes was boarded up, its once cheerful neon sign dark and lifeless. The community center where we'd held the annual Firefly Festival looked like it hadn't seen a coat of paint in decades, its walls peeling and windows clouded with grime. "What happened here?" I asked, unable to keep the dismay from my voice. Noah's grip tightened on the steering wheel, his knuckles turning white. "Economy hit us hard. The mill closed down about 3 years back, and folks started leaving for bigger cities, looking for work. Without the festival bringing in tourists every summer, well..." He trailed off, but I could fill in the blanks. We pulled up to Mama's little yellow house, and my heart clenched. The porch swing where we used to sit and talk for hours was gone, and weeds had overtaken her beloved flower beds. The peeling paint and sagging shutters told a story of neglect that brought tears to my eyes. "I tried to keep an eye on the place," Noah said softly. "But between the garage and helping my folks, I didn't get out here as much as I should have." I swallowed hard, fighting back the lump in my throat. "It's okay. I should have come back sooner." He helped me carry my things inside, and I was hit with a wave of nostalgia so strong it nearly knocked me off my feet. Everything was exactly as Mama had left it, her favorite quilt draped over the back of the sofa, a half-finished crossword puzzle on the coffee table. The air was thick with dust and memories, and I felt my chest tighten with grief. "You gonna be all right here by yourself?" Noah asked, concern etched across his features. I nodded, not quite meeting his eyes. "I'll be fine. Thanks for the ride." He hesitated for a moment, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a small glass jar. "Here," he said, pressing it into my hand. "I caught these last night. Thought you might like them." I looked down to see a pair of fireflies flickering inside the jar, their soft light a stark contrast to the shadows creeping in around us. "I thought they were gone," I whispered, my voice barely audible. Noah's lips quirked into a half-smile. "Nah, they're still around. Just gotta know where to look." As he turned to leave, I felt a sudden panic grip me. "Noah?" I called out, surprising myself. He paused in the doorway, looking back at me with those warm, hazel eyes. I don't suppose you'd want to get coffee sometime? Catch up?" His smile widened, and for a moment I saw the boy I'd left behind all those years ago. I'd like that, Mia. I'd like that a lot. That night, as I curled up on the porch, watching the fireflies Noah had caught for me flicker in their jar, an idea began to take shape. Maybe, just maybe, I could bring some light back to Jackson Creek. It wouldn't be easy, and I had no idea where to start. But as I watched those tiny insects blink their secret messages to each other, I felt a spark of hope ignite in my chest. The next morning, I woke to the sound of a lawnmower. Confused and still groggy, I stumbled out onto the porch to find Noah wrestling with the overgrown grass in the front yard. "What on earth are you doing?" I called out, trying to smooth down my bedhead. He cut the engine and grinned up at me, sweat already beading on his forehead in the early morning heat. "Thought you could use a hand getting the place back in shape. Plus, I figured it'd give us a chance to have that coffee." I couldn't help but laugh, shaking my head at his persistence. "All right, let me get dressed and I'll put on a pot." As we sat on the porch steps, sipping coffee and watching the sun climb higher in the sky, I felt some of the tension begin to ease from my shoulders. Noah filled me in on the town gossip: who'd gotten married, who'd moved away, and all the drama I'd missed in the years I'd been gone. "So, what about you?" I asked, nudging his shoulder with mine. "No lucky lady in your life?" He ducked his head, a faint blush creeping up his neck. "Nah, not really. Been too busy trying to keep the garage afloat." I frowned, remembering how run down everything had looked when we drove through town. "Is it that bad?" Noah sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's not great. Without the festival bringing in tourists every summer, a lot of businesses are struggling. We're barely keeping our heads above water." An idea began to form in the back of my mind, but before I could voice it, Noah changed the subject. "What about you? Got some fancy New York boyfriend waiting for you to get back?" I snorted into my coffee. "Hardly. My last relationship ended. Badly. Let's just say I'm taking a break from the dating scene for a while." Noah's eyes softened with concern. "He hurt you?" "Not physically," I assured him quickly. "Just creatively. He was my professor at art school. When things ended, he made sure none of the galleries in the city would touch my work." Anger flashed across Noah's face. "That's not right, Mia. Your art is amazing." I blinked, surprised. "You've seen my work?" He grinned sheepishly. "Might have looked you up online a time or two. Those paintings you did of the fireflies? They're incredible." Warmth bloomed in my chest at his words, and I found myself studying his profile as he gazed out over the overgrown yard. The years had been kind to Noah James, adding a rugged maturity to his boyish good looks. I couldn't help but wonder what might have happened if I'd stayed in Jackson Creek all those years ago. Shaking off the thought, I stood up and brushed off my jeans. "Well, I guess we'd better get back to work if we want to make this place presentable again." Noah hopped up, his enthusiasm infectious. "Yes, ma'am. Just point me where you want me." As we worked side by side, clearing away weeds and repainting the porch railing, I felt the first stirrings of an idea taking root. By the time we broke for lunch, it had blossomed into a full-fledged plan. "Noah," I said, setting down my sandwich, "what would you think about bringing back the Firefly Festival?" His eyes widened. "Are you serious?" I nodded, excitement building as I laid out my vision. "We could use my mom's house as a base of operations. I've got some contacts in the art world who might be willing to come down and do workshops. We could have live music, local food vendors, maybe even a firefly catching contest for the kids." Noah's grin grew with every word. "Mia, that's brilliant. But do you really think we can pull it off?" I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "With your knowledge of the town and my connections, I think we just might have a shot." The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind of activity. Noah and I threw ourselves into planning the festival, working long hours and late nights to bring my vision to life. We cleared out the old community center, rallied local businesses to sponsor booths, and even managed to book a few up-and-coming bands from Nashville. As we worked, I found myself falling back into the easy rhythm we'd shared as teenagers. Noah's quiet strength and unwavering support became my anchor in the storm of grief and uncertainty that still swirled around me. More than once, I caught myself staring at him when he wasn't looking, wondering what might have been, and what still could be. But just as things were starting to come together, disaster struck. I was in the middle of hanging lights in the town square when my phone rang. It was Noah, his voice tight with worry. "Mia, you need to get down to the community center. Now." When I arrived, my heart sank. A burst pipe had flooded the main hall, ruining most of our decorations and putting the entire festival in jeopardy. Noah was in the thick of it, directing volunteers and trying to salvage what we could. "What are we going to do?" I asked, surveying the damage with growing despair. Noah turned to me, determination blazing in his eyes. "We're gonna fix it, that's what. This town needs this festival, Mia. We can't give up now." His words sparked something inside me, and I felt a familiar fire ignite in my chest. "You're right. We've come too far to quit." We worked through the night, mopping up water and reimagining our plans. As the sun began to rise, casting a golden glow over our bedraggled crew, I realized something profound. This wasn't just about saving the festival anymore. It was about saving Jackson Creek itself, and maybe in the process, saving a piece of myself I'd thought was lost forever. The night before the festival, Noah and I sat on the newly repaired porch swing, exhausted but exhilarated. The yard was filled with fireflies, their gentle light a promise of the magic to come. "We did it," Noah said softly, his arm draped casually across the back of the swing. "I still can't believe it." I leaned into him, letting my head rest on his shoulder. "We make a pretty good team, huh?" He chuckled, the sound rumbling through his chest. "Always have." A comfortable silence fell between us, broken only by the chirping of crickets and the distant hoot of an owl. I found myself thinking about the path that had led me back here. The heartbreak, the disappointment, the loss. But for the first time since Mama died, I felt a glimmer of hope for the future. "Noah?" I said, lifting my head to look at him. "Hmm? Thank you. For everything. I don't think I could have done this without you." His eyes softened and he reached up to tuck a stray curl behind my ear. "You're stronger than you give yourself credit for, Mia, but I'm glad I could help." The air between us crackled with tension, and for a moment I thought he might kiss me. But then he cleared his throat and stood up, stretching his arms above his head. "We should probably get some sleep. Big day tomorrow." I nodded, trying to ignore the pang of disappointment in my chest. "You're right. Good night, Noah." As I watched him walk to his truck, I couldn't help but wonder if I'd missed my chance once again. The day of the festival dawned bright and clear, as if even the weather was conspiring to make our dreams a reality. From the moment the gates opened, the community center was buzzing with energy. Children ran around with jars, trying to catch fireflies, while their parents browsed the artisan booths and sampled local delicacies. I was in my element, flitting from one activity to another, making sure everything ran smoothly. But no matter where I went, my eyes kept seeking out Noah in the crowd. He seemed to be everywhere at once, fixing a wobbly table here, helping an elderly couple find seats there. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the festivities, I made my way to the stage for the evening's main event. My hands shook slightly as I adjusted the microphone, looking out over the sea of familiar faces. "Good evening, everyone," I began, my voice stronger than I felt. "I want to thank you all for coming out tonight and making this festival such a success. When I came back to Jackson Creek, I wasn't sure what I'd find, but what I discovered was a community that's stronger and more resilient than ever." A cheer went up from the crowd, and I caught sight of Noah standing near the back, his eyes locked on mine. "This festival is about more than just fireflies," I continued. "It's about remembering who we are and where we come from. It's about coming together in times of hardship and celebrating the light that exists in all of us." As I spoke, I saw heads nodding in agreement, and more than a few eyes glistening with unshed tears. So tonight, as we watched the fireflies dance, let's remember the magic that brought us all here. And let's make a promise to keep that magic alive in Jackson Creek for years to come. The applause was deafening as I stepped off the stage. People surged forward to congratulate me, but I only had eyes for one person. Noah was making his way through the crowd, a look of determination on his face that made my heart race. When he reached me, he didn't say a word. He just pulled me close and kissed me, right there in front of God and everyone. And in that moment, with the sounds of the festival swirling around us and the fireflies lighting up the night sky, I knew I was home. The next few months passed in a blur of activity. The success of the Firefly Festival had breathed new life into Jackson Creek, and suddenly everyone wanted to be a part of the town's revival. I threw myself into my art with renewed passion, drawing inspiration from the landscape and people around me. Noah cleared out a corner of his garage for me to use as a studio, and I spent long hours there, lost in a world of color and light. But amid all the excitement and progress, there were moments of doubt. Late one night, as Noah and I sat on the porch swing, I finally voiced the fear that had been gnawing at me. "What if I'm not cut out for small-town life anymore?" I whispered, staring out at the fireflies dancing in the yard. "What if I wake up one day and feel trapped, just like I did before?" Noah was quiet for a long moment, his thumb tracing circles on the back of my hand. When he spoke, his voice was soft but sure. "Mia, loving someone doesn't mean giving up who you are. If you need to spread your wings, I'll be right here cheering you on. And if you decide to fly back home, well, I'll be here for that too." I turned to look at him, struck by the depth of understanding in his eyes. This wasn't the boy I'd left behind all those years ago. This was a man who knew the value of holding on and the courage it took to let go. "I love you," I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. It was the first time I'd said it, though I'd felt it for weeks. Noah's face broke into a grin that could have lit up the whole town. "I love you too, Mia. More than I ever thought possible." As summer faded into fall, Jackson Creek continued to flourish. The old diner reopened under new management, serving up milkshakes that tasted just like I remembered. The community center hosted art classes and music nights, becoming a hub of activity for young and old alike. One crisp October evening, Noah suggested we take a walk down to the creek. As we strolled hand in hand under the starry sky, the sounds of crickets and distant owl hoots filling the air, I couldn't help but feel that something was different. Noah seemed nervous, fidgeting with something in his pocket. We reached the old wooden bridge where we used to meet as teenagers, and Noah came to a stop, turning to face me. The moonlight reflected off the water, casting a soft glow on his features. "Mia," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "Coming back to Jackson Creek was the best decision you ever made. For both of us. These past few months have been the happiest of my life." My heart began to race as I realized what was happening. Noah took a deep breath and continued. "I've loved you since we were kids, catching fireflies in mason jars. And now I can't imagine spending a single day without you by my side." He dropped to one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "Mia Campbell, will you marry me?" Tears welled up in my eyes as he opened the box to reveal a beautiful vintage ring, its diamond catching the moonlight. It was perfect, just like this moment. "Yes," I whispered, then louder. "Yes, Noah James, I will marry you." He slipped the ring onto my finger with shaking hands, then stood and pulled me into a passionate kiss. As we embraced, I saw a flicker of light from the corner of my eye. Turning, I gasped in delight. The banks of the creek were alive with fireflies, their gentle glow seeming to pulse in celebration of our engagement. "Did you plan this?" I asked Noah, gesturing to the fireflies. He grinned, that boyish smile I'd fallen in love with all those years ago. "I wish I could take credit, but I think they just knew. Maybe your mama sent them to give us her blessing." We stood there on the bridge for what felt like hours, wrapped in each other's arms, watching the fireflies dance across the water. In that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that this was exactly where I was meant to be. As we walked back towards town, the late evening air crisp and sweet, Noah squeezed my hand. "So, what happens now?" he asked, a hint of uncertainty in his voice. I took a deep breath, considering the question. My life in New York felt like a distant memory, as if it had happened to someone else entirely. Here, in this moment, I felt more alive than I had in years. "I think," I said slowly, "that we build a life here, together, if that's okay with you." Noah's answering smile was brighter than any firefly. I think I could learn to live with that. In the years that followed, Jackson Creek continued to grow and change, much like Noah and I did. We faced challenges, of course, the struggles of merging two lives, the occasional disagreement about the direction of the town's development, the heartache of losing Noah's father to a long illness. But through it all, we stood strong together, our love deepening with each passing day. The Firefly Festival became an annual tradition, drawing visitors from all over the state and beyond. I continued to paint, finding inspiration in the changing seasons and the faces of our neighbors. Noah's garage expanded into a successful auto repair and restoration business, breathing new life into classic cars and providing jobs for many in the community. And on warm summer evenings, we would sit on our porch swing and watch the fireflies dance across the yard. In those moments, surrounded by the gentle glow of their light, I was reminded of the magic that had brought us together and the love that continued to light our way. Jackson Creek, once a place I couldn't wait to leave, had become the home I never knew I needed. And Noah, the boy I'd left behind, had become the man who made every day an adventure. Together, we had found a way to chase our dreams while staying true to our roots, proving that sometimes the greatest journeys lead us right back where we started, but with new eyes to see the beauty that was there all along. As I looked at Noah, his face illuminated by the soft glow of fireflies, I knew that our love story was just beginning. And like the flickering lights that had guided us back to each other, our future was bright, warm, and full of endless possibilities. "You know," Noah murmured, pulling me closer, "I always knew you'd come back someday." I raised an eyebrow, a smile playing at my lips. "Oh, really? And how did you know that?" He chuckled, pressing a kiss to my forehead. "Because some things are meant to be, Mia. Some people, too." As we sat there, wrapped in each other's arms and bathed in the gentle light of 1,000 fireflies, I knew he was right. Our love story might have taken a few detours, but in the end, it had led us exactly where we were meant to be. Home, in Jackson Creek, chasing fireflies and dreams together. If you enjoy heartwarming, inspirational Southern stories, then pick up a copy of Ernest Dempsey's latest novel, The Final Round, through the link in the description. And be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories from Magnolia Crossing when they're uploaded. Thanks for watching.